Here we are again. Same old shit, different day. City with a disappointing result, a disappointing loss in a game that we couldn't probably really afford to lose. 2-0 last night in Turin against Juventus. First time I talked about it, I didn't get a chance to go live last night. I've had COVID or something, I don't know. I'm coughing, I'm too tired and been too stressed and too tired. This morning I got a little bit of energy to talk about it, and it's tough. It's very tough to sit here and sort of break this down in too much detail without essentially just replaying any of the videos that I've already done. I could sit here genuinely and just play the reaction for the Liverpool game, the Sporting game, the Spurs game, and essentially the same points will be made. And I don't know what else to add further to it. I mean, we will talk about the problems anyway. We'll go through it. But it is a weird feeling when you feel like you're just sort of retreading the same ground, talking about the same points, and essentially we're sort of stuck in this horrible stasis and this weird limbo that City are in right now. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel like I have an obvious solution to suggest, other than sort of surface level, superficial ones, like maybe we should play the youth players every now and then. Stuff like that, which I feel, if we're being really honest, and this is someone who's very optimistic about youth players in general, I think if we're being really honest, it's funny because someone's just said Pep must understand that possession football doesn't win games. Like, come on, man, come on. Like, let's be realistic here. Position football, I don't know what you mean by position football, mate. Unless you mean possession football, because possession football has literally won in 4 leagues in a row. So the issue clearly isn't the type of football, it's the players. Anyway, but the issue we've got here is that we're sort of scratching around for tiny suggestions like Pep should just give up all his style that's made him successful for 15 years and is proven to work, and just defend really deep and give up everything. Like, I mean, we're desperate if we're saying that. Pep should just drop all the senior players and play academy players. Look, we're desperate if we're saying that. And you can turn around and say we are desperate, but desperate solutions aren't usually smart solutions. They could work, but it's so desperate that we have to acknowledge that we haven't really got a clue. If you're looking for stuff like that as a solution, then you haven't really got one. You're just sort of thrashing around in the water, flailing about like a fish, you know, like just in a net trying to get out. And that's where City are right now. And as soon as we acknowledge that, I think that's probably makes it a little bit easier. And that's very much where my head is at, you know. And once again, we will talk about the problems, but if I was just to sort of like succinctly put it into words, I would say, you know, too many old players that are past it. You don't know until you know, but we've clearly reached that point. There's multiple players currently who are vastly overplayed and probably as a result hugely out of form. Like, people asking what's going on with all the mistakes from Josko and people like that. Look, if a guy who doesn't usually make mistakes suddenly makes a lot of mistakes and also has played an awful lot of football while the team's really low in confidence, there's your answer, if I'm being honest. Low in confidence collectively and also an awful lot of football. So you've got that. You've got a hugely out of form, hugely tired, hugely old squad. Then you've got the academy lads who aren't really trusted by Guardiola. Maybe they're just not good enough, I don't know. So basically they're to make up the numbers. So if you really want, you could look at the bench last night and go, let's look at the bench. Let's look at the bench. Where are we at? Here we go. Bring it up on screen. You could really, if you wanted to, you could just put a line through Max Hudson, who most of us never heard before, Simpson Pusey, Wilson Esbrand, Jacob Wright, Nico Riley, and McAtee. You could probably put a line through 6 of them who aren't going to get played unless we're in true emergencies. Maybe Simpson Pusey has, but the rest of them hasn't. So that just leaves Foden, Kovacic, Ortega and Nunes and Savinho. So, yeah, that's another part of it, you know. You could turn around and say the academy lads are just there to make up numbers. Whether you agree on that or not, I don't agree with it, but that's what's happening. We clearly have got big holes in the squad. We haven't got a right back that functions right now. We clearly need like a backup DM. We clearly and absolutely and desperately, incredulously need a backup for Haaland. Haaland can't play every single game. He can't. It's really affecting him. It's obvious. When you put all that together, and of course the quality issues, and I think, and I've said this a few times, and I keep getting criticised for it. Some of the players we've got just probably aren't quite good enough for the highest level. You know how I feel about certain players and whatever. I just think they're not quite at the high level that it demands. If you're going to have a small squad, every player needs to be top class, like truly top class. If you're going to have 20 players, they all have to be brilliant. All of them are categorically brilliant. Like when you go back a few years ago, you looked at our squad and on the bench we had Jesus and Sterling, like that coming off the bench. And they were clearly much better than the level we got now. That's what I'm on about. I'm on about like players who are really high quality. And we had Alvarez coming off the bench as Hartley, who's clearly brilliant, I'm not saying he's like an elite level world-class player, but he's a top-class player. Then, this is what I'm on about. So if you're going to have a smaller squad, you've got to have that quality. And when you think about all those issues, what's happened? There's been mistakes. I think City have probably got far too confident. I'm wary of pointing fingers at Cheeky or Pep or Ferran or whoever or Barada who's left. I'm wary of pointing fingers at any of them directly because I think collectively they all have responsibilities and I think collectively they've all failed at some point. I do feel there's been mistakes probably made by Cheeky. There's been mistakes made by Guardiola. I think there's been mistakes made by the whole management team. So I don't see the point at pointing fingers at looking for a scapegoat. I know looking for one scapegoat makes it feel easier. It's so easy to go, I blame Pep. Done. We fixed it. We've got a problem. And if Pep goes, everything's all right. No, that's not true. I blame Cheeky. Job done. We fixed it. And if he goes, everything's okay. No, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. There was plenty of rumours to suggest that it's this collective decision making, a sort of the eye has been taken off the ball, so to speak. And I really believe that City are. I don't think City would ever get complacent intentionally, but I think they've got complacent unintentionally, and I think there might be some mistakes. And I feel City have not read the room well enough. And I feel as well, if we're being really honest, I feel like this 20-man squad of high quality, it works. It does work genuinely if they're all high quality, if they all stay fit. That's a big caveat. But I also think we've probably not really addressed the elephant in the room, that is the fixture schedule. Like, the amount of games City play this year compared to 3 years ago, it's just not the same. Like, the international tournaments are creeping further and further into the calendar. We've got the Club World Cup coming up. Games are lasting longer. They actually are, So the season is longer. And so therefore, you're going to need more players. I also think we need to be really brutally honest about the quality of these players. Guardiola's got every right to say, this isn't my Manchester City side. This is just true. It isn't his City side. Kanji, Aki, Stones, Kovacic both been playing. We've had De Bruyne out of various bits. We've had Doku constantly getting injured. Grealish. We've got, Oscar Bob, Rodri. We've had several players out at any point. But some of those guys are always out. And some of those guys I absolutely love. But if they're always out, and look, when you look at their age too, there's some very difficult conversations to have here. At some point, it becomes the responsibility of the management team to predict these circumstances. And I'm not saying they haven't. I'm not stupid. I know they would know players get injured. But you have to look at the worst case scenario always and go, what's our plan if that happens? And the plan can't be, we just play every player into the ground and we ignore the academy players. And this is the thing. I don't think City have done that. Like, if the plan was truly, like, this isn't a surprise to me. Look, it's gone a little bit further, their injuries, but I've had multiple videos and tweets where I've said, we always get around November, December. We have a little period where we've got like 13, 14 fit players. It's been worse this year because of the quality of the players, like Rodri and all that kind of stuff. But it's always happened. It's been longer this time, but it's always happened. So it wasn't an unrealistic expectation. It wasn't an unrealistic assumption or guess to think that it could happen at some point that too many players could get injured at the same time and it could stay that way given the schedule. So this is the thing, is like, I feel like City could have seen this coming because I did. Not quite this much, but I thought it was possible. You probably did too. And I'm sure they might have thought it was possible. So what was the solution? Now, there's been rumours that people like, Kyogo for Harashi, that Celtic striker, was offered to Guardiola, but Guardiola said, no, I don't want him. And other players were offered to Guardiola and he said, no, that's fine. He's got every right to say no. But the point is, there has to be a backup. And if the backup is people like the academy lads, like McAtee and that, but then Pep gets to this point and goes, but I'm not going to play them really. I can only play him when we're comfortable. Then you sort of shooting yourself in the foot, really. So there has to be a solution, and I feel like there needs to be some truthful conversations. I'm sure there is. I'm not like, I can't sit here and tell the most successful management team in the past 10 years of the world, how to do their jobs. But I'm just sort of trying to have the conversations that I presume are happening, and just try and verbalize the way around this if they're going to fix it. Like, where we're at right now is sort of unacceptable because it's of our own doing. I understand that sometimes seasons like this can actually be good for you. I know it sounds weird, but I do feel like sometimes you got to take your medicine. And if your medicine is humiliation and a shocking realization that so many of these players are unfortunately unreliable, they're brilliant. But Ake and Stones, they're unreliable. Kovacic has always had injuries in his game. Doku struggles to have a run of games. Look, Kevin De Bruyne, I love him. He's my favourite ever Manchester City player, but he's getting older. Gundogan is getting older. Kyle Walker's just not reliable anymore. I can't sit here hand on heart and say that we plan for all these circumstances. There has to be, as Adrian said, collective responsibility. And I'm sure there will be. They're not stupid. They're winners. Like Edison's reliable fitness-wise, but form right now. Look, Edison's also an interesting one, by the way. So, Hella in the chat brought up Edison. Edison is... I understand why Guardiola didn't want to lose him, because he's Edison. I understand why he didn't want to lose people like Bernardo in the past and whatever. But our attitude has always been that if a player, wants to go, they can go. And I am a firm believer in that as a philosophy, broadly speaking. Not every single time. I'm a firm believer in that because if a player has to go, well, they're gone. A lot of them is gone mentally. I'm not saying they can't be there. Certain people like Bernardo Silva, for example, has been asked to go for years, and that was only lifestyle. But he's a self-motivating player, Bernardo Silva. I don't know if Edison is at the same level. Look, Edison's always had mistakes in him, but I don't feel like, I'm not going to sit here and blame Edison for anything, but I do feel like there's so many players there's quite a few players that have flirted with leaving a little bit, and they've been here for an awful long time. And I'm very much of the mindset of like, if these want to go, let them go and be brutal, because I think we have to, because the first sign of a player wanting to leave, when you get a moment like this, Edison could be I could be sat in Saudi now, earning fucking 7 million a month or something stupid in the sunshine. And I bet that's tempting for him. And if he's thinking that, he's not present. I'm not saying he is, but you can see how that could happen. And when you get that situation, you've got players who aren't locked in. And why would they be locked in? He's been here since 2017, Edison. I'm not saying he won't be, but the heads are already turned. And it's very simple human psychology. That if the head's already turned and they've won the lot, and the problem is, it's not like there's anything left to do. I think there's too many players who will go through this squad, and I'm going to go through the squad right now and look at the actual team. I'll go through it, bring it up on the screen. There's too many players. Edison has had his head turned, we know that. Look, Edison is still a top-class keeper, but we know he's had a good start to the season, Edison, by the way. He actually did, but his form dipped a little bit. But we know his head is turned, and we know he's getting older, and we know he's won a lot. Kyle Walker had his head turned a long time ago. He wanted to go because of the mess of his personal life, and he won it all. He's just done age-wise. Ruben Diaz is reliable and trustworthy. I love him. Josko Vardiol is absolutely fine in terms of mentality, but Josko Vardiol has played too much football. I'm not worried about his future. I'm not worried about Rico Lewis's future and all that kind of stuff because, once again, they're relatively new to the squad. Young and out of form right now. The pair of them are out of form. And I've seen a lot of Rico Lewis hate, which I'm a little bit uncomfortable with personally, only because a lot of that hate wasn't there until the last 2 months, which is always a reasonable sign that people are following others and getting frustrated. And Rico is making a ton of mistakes, and he's getting bullied off the ball more than usual, I would argue. He always does a little bit weak, but right now he looks weaker. And usually, I don't know about you, but usually fatigue sort of leads into that. Bad decision making, not as strong, nothing in the legs, out of position. I'm not defending him in performances because of crap. But what I'm saying is, anyway, the point I was going to make then, Gundogan, look, it's Gundogan. Look, he left. He came back. He's obviously too old. Grealish is another. He's been in and out of the side. I'm not sure his focus is fully there. It's been widely documented by Grealish personally that he feels like he can play football and he struggled a little bit in the bask of the glory of the treble. So you've already got in that team there Ederson, Walker, Grealish and Gundogan, who probably thought about their futures, I would argue. Kevin De Bruyne, his contract's up in the air. You know, Kevin De Bruyne's a legend, but he's getting older. He's clearly thinking about his future. There's 5. And Bernardo Silva, we know he is. He's already always thinking about moving on. Because, look, I'm not blaming Bernardo. Bernardo I trust. I implicitly trust because Bernardo is, I'll give you my best. But, you know, Doku's just got here. Haaland doesn't look happy right now, but I don't think he's thinking of moving. But, yeah. But I know I'm saying Grealish look good for Forest. I'm not saying that. But we know Grealish is always... how are you going to defend Pep and the players? Oh, Sanoob. I'm not defending any of them, mate. I'm talking about them like adults. That's the thing. Is like, if you want me to sit here and say they're all shit, fuck them, Pep's a dick, then I'd be a child, because it's just not true. I don't do that. If you want to find someone that, I'm sure there's another YouTuber who don't do that for you, mate. But I'd rather sit and talk about it like an adult and work out what's going on, because I'm not going to take every single player that's giving me everything that's brilliant and just throw them all in the bin because they are clearly struggling. That's not how I work. I just don't do that. Then I go and look at the players on the bench. Savinho, yeah, fine. He's young. He obviously wants to be here. Nunez probably wants to be here too. The rest of them are kids. Ortega and Foden, Kovacic. I mean, I've got no worries about the commitment here. But then look at the players here. Ake, look, I'm sure Ake would stay for ages. Oscar Bob, fine. Rodri, fine. Kanji, Foden, Stones. Look, all these guys, yeah, they're fine. But there's too many players, I would argue, that their future is uncertain, their age is uncertain, their commitment, where they're at mentally is uncertain, and there's too many players that are just sort of tired. I think Haaland's going to get an injury. I absolutely agree. I think Haaland is a ticking time bomb. Haaland does not look happy. He doesn't look happy. And I don't think he's not happy at Man City. I think he just looks tired and frustrated, and I don't like it. It's not a good look, and I want a little bit of fire. And look, I mean this with much love to Erling Haaland, but we could probably do with you now, Erling Haaland, to be an absolute battering ram and brew and that. Come on, I'm going to battle with you guys. But right now, Haaland isn't attacking the near post. His runs are sort of predictable, and he looks like a sullen figure right now. He's only young, and look, I am very wary of criticising the character of these players far too much. Haaland is 24 years old. I am 39 years old. I understand what it's like when you are losing. Like, this is a really weird comparison, but at the same age, 24 years old, 25 years old, I was in a band pretty seriously. And I remember how emotional and frustrated and sulky I got when things didn't go right because I cared. And it happened. I don't think any of these players are mercenaries, by the way. You cannot have 4 leagues in a row and win trebles if you're mercenaries. I hate that. I hate it when people just go for the worst possible insult because things aren't going well. It's just not fair, man. It's just not fair. It's just not fair. I don't think it's fair at all to label all these players mercenaries. There's nothing that shows that they're mercenaries other than bad form. It's like, I've had a terrible month personally, mistakes constantly, but we all do. So, we all make mistakes. Doesn't mean suddenly you don't care, whatever. I just think they're human beings like the rest of us, and I think Haaland, I agree with MC, is a bad loser, and it is affecting him. I think he's a bad loser because he's a born winner, and he's emotional because he's a young bloke in his mid-20s, and I know what it's like to be mid-20s because I've been there a long time ago now. But I was emotional, and you're little, and some of you guys are watching at the same age. I guarantee you now, if you're mid-20s, you look back when you're in your 30s and go, I was a little boy. And you're still adults, of course, but you are still a little boy. You're in your head and mentally, because you haven't fully developed and grown yet, and you haven't had the experience in life to know how to deal with things. That comes with age, and some people it never does. Some people are just bad losers. So it's one of those things where I think Haaland is a sort of like vicious circle right now of he needs the confident success around him. He's getting frustrated. He's overplayed. Haaland is playing far too many minutes for this Manchester City side. There are games where he needs to rest because you can't. Yeah, it's Groundhog Day. So Haaland's form is crap. His body language looks miserable. But at the same time, the team around him is a mess too. And if we're being really honest, like, I think if the rest of the team are playing well and confident, Haaland's probably scoring loads of goals, and we're absolutely fine. It's probably true. And he's only as good as the service around him. He can do better, of course he can. So many can do better, so many can do better. But I'm not just saying any of them are doing well. I'm just trying to picture what's happening where. Mr. Roller with a super chat said, lack of investment plus age plus injuries is equals this season. Exactly. And we can get really excited about net spend as City's being the lowest net spend over the past 5 years. Well, guess what? It's caught up to us. We have spent money, we bought players, but we've also sold a lot of very good players. And I think there's only so long when you lose the quality, let's go back, of... Might sound weird saying this, but we really could do with Zinchenko right now at left back, Or then, especially because he was better under Pep than he was under Arteta. So Zinchenko, Gabriel Jesus, Raheem Sterling, Riyad Mahrez, people like that of this high quality. Julian Alvarez, who else has left? All the academy partners like Cole Palmer, that kind of stuff. When you look at all these players that have gone, there's a lot of very good players there that we absolutely could do with. We really, 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 really could do with. And right now, we are in a situation where we have to be brutal. I think there's too many players. A lot of people like Doku and whatever, and Rico Lewis and Savinho are getting a lot of criticism. And I think their issue is that they're starting every single week as starters, when I don't think they are starters. I think with a fit squad, if we had a couple more world-class players, they would be coming off the bench. Can you imagine Doku coming off the bench for 20 minutes towards the end of the game, 30 minutes, and starting Carabao Cup games, FA Cup games, when a player of the peak quality of Riyad Mahrez has done his job? You tear them to pieces, and that's exactly where he needs to be. But the problem we've got right now is we're getting players who are meant to be those rotational players coming in the team all the time because no one else is fit and no one else is there, or we've let players go and not replaced them with sufficient quality. So this is where we're at. I feel like some of these players would be fine if we had 2 or 3 more players of higher quality, but we haven't got that. So we've lost a sort of killer edge. We've lost a level of quality. And I would argue, when you look at the quality of the treble team, which was perfectly balanced, it's dipped a bit. And it's dipped a bit. And there's too many players that I would say that are 7, 8 out of 10. But compared to the rest of the league, the 7s out of 10 or 8 out of 10, where previously we had a 9 out of 10 in every position. Go back to Bernardo Silva on the wing 2-3 years ago for the treble. He was tearing Real Madrid to pieces. And I know he's not ever been a brilliant winger, but he was just a bit younger, a little bit fresher, full of vigour, full of hunger and full of life. And then Mahrez was coming on in the team as well. And then even Jack was having a great great season out wide. And then you had people like I've forgotten all the team. You had obviously Walker a lot younger and all this kind of stuff. Basically, we've sort of leveled down a little bit because we've got a lot of the same players, but they've got older and they've got more tired. We actually look at the game last night. I mean, I've not even talked about the game yet because what's the point? I actually I read Guardiola's quotes. Guardiola, I mean, look at the possession there and the XG and all that kind of stuff. Guardiola was reasonably positive about his side. He said we played really, really good, and that annoyed the internet. Don't take that literally. Guardiola knows that there was stop trying to find excuses. I'm not finding excuses, mate. Are some people genuinely just what is the level that you want? Do you want to just say everyone is shit and everyone's crap and no one cares? If that's what you want to say, mate, you go ahead and say that. But that's it. If you want to be that rudimentary and that simple of your analysis, go for it. But I would rather talk how we got here and look at the collective problem, because that's what adults do, If you want to just say all the players are shit and none of them care, I've done this, I've done it, then go for it, mate. Go for it. But I would rather talk about why we're at. Certain players aren't good enough. Certain players aren't... They just want to... I would rather talk about what's going on and how it happened. And this is where we're at. And the thing is, I'm not even not criticising him. I'm saying that certain players aren't good enough. I'm saying the management collectively got it wrong. I'm actually putting out a lot of very negatives. I'm just doing it in a calmer way, looking at the bigger picture and trying to address it as a solution, then work out how to get there, because that's what you've got to do. When something this bad happens, this is the same in anything. When something this negative happens to an organisation that's been as brilliant and as well run as Manchester City, it isn't one thing. It isn't one thing. It has to be a whole clusterfuck of nonsense that happens to cause the wheels to come off this badly. This is a catastrophic implosion that cannot be caused by a bad signing. That cannot be caused by players suddenly not caring. That cannot be caused by Pep's tactics. It has to be everything at once to cause it, because they are too good, too experienced, and got too much. They have got too much quality even now for it to be this bad. It has to be a collection of so many things, so we have to address them all. So when Guardiola says we played really, really good, do I think he means we played really, really good? No. What I think Guardiola always means, because he defends his team in public, is that they did what he wanted them to do. They tried to. Is he aware they made mistakes? Of course there is. You got Gundogan talking about how we're losing all the duels, we're making mistakes, we're running backwards too much in the counter-attacks. Gundogan's coming out and saying exactly what Guardiola's actually saying in the dressing room. So if you gauge your brain a bit, it's very obvious how they feel. They are overcomplicating things. We are releasing the ball at the wrong times. We are careless in duels. We are missing the right times to pass release the ball. We are losing the ball, and they score on the transition every time because we can't run back 50, 60 metres. That's not what we're built for. And by that, he's saying we don't have the legs for it. We're built for possession, keeping the ball and being strong. Gundogan is saying what Guardiola isn't saying there, but Guardiola is saying it behind closed doors. So when Guardiola comes out and says we played really good, what he really means is that I understand the circumstances. I understand that the players are tired. And look, Guardiola would come out. You would see it in Guardiola's eyes if he felt the players were not giving it his all. I guarantee you, I promise you, Guardiola is a phenomenal reader of the mood of a dressing room. He's a phenomenal reader of people. Don't forget, Guardiola was the one who knew that Cancelo was having a hissy fit during the treble season and dumped him on the bench, and then we went on to win the treble when the season was going around. Guardiola can read people. He understands when... And everyone in this team right now, if they're there, it's because I presume Guardiola thinks that they're there. They're being sincere, even with their crapness. You know, like, he understands when someone's been crap but trying, and when someone's been crap and not trying. So I believe that Guardiola believes the players are trying, but for a combination of form, confidence, fitness, life, injuries, whatever, not being good enough, it's just not working. So I feel this is where Guardiola's at. So when he says that we played really, really good, I think he just basically means the players tried their best. And when actually, if I'm being totally honest with you, I think City were the better side, but once again, it's the same story. And when I say the better side, I think we created, dominated the ball a little bit more, and they created a couple of more clear chances, but they did it in a sort of like a quick burst, if that makes sense. Like, City pretty much had all the ball, and then on the counter, they scored again. Because we can't defend the transition. We can't defend in the back post, because certain people have turned into trading cones, you know? People have got older and older and crapper and injury prone, and the mistakes are catching up to us. So I do think, in general, the direction of the way that City were trying to play last night was good, but the quality wasn't there. The fitness wasn't there, or whatever. And that is an issue. And this comes back to then, well, how can we change that? What can we do? I unfortunately think we're going to have to just accept that we're going to have to get to January. And I know January won't change anything, but I would be amazed if City don't bring forward this much needed rebuild and start looking for a player or two. That won't change anything, but I would presume that City have to look for a midfielder, a fresh infection. Oh God, there's a Freudian slip. A fresh injection of enthusiasm into the team. Hopefully people like Bob and Stones and Ake, Kanji, Foden, all these people can stay fit, and Kovacic, and get involved in the team. Because if all of a sudden, if we have a team, if our team looks like this, Ederson, Ortega, Ake at left back, Diaz, Stones, Akanji, there's your defence there. And we have Kovacic, De Bruyne, Foden, I don't know, Grealish or Doku, Haaland or Bernardo Silva. All of a sudden, the team just sounds so much stronger and so much better. But we have to find a way to Oscar Bob in the team. But we have to address the problems. We have to address the problems. And I don't know if you will do. I just don't know how we change it anytime soon. Kenneth said, without a doubt, everything tied to the 115. We're just going to have to suck it up, and the next 6 months are going to be painful. Maybe you're right, Kenneth. Maybe City have been frugal for those reasons. Maybe we haven't tried to be wasting money because there is a nervousness. It might even be unspoken. You know, sometimes people say things like, oh, he is a bit overpriced, but they're not all admitting to each other that we're saving money because you never know where it's going to be. Maybe that's right, mate. Maybe you're right. It could be all tied to that. And I think there might be a subconscious aim from City to sort of project frugalness and profitability because of everything going around. Look at all our... there wasn't the quotes where someone was like, I think it was Ferran or someone at one point, I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember, it was a year or two ago, where like, look how much money we're making from our academy players. Like, stop bragging about getting rid of all these young players. It drives me mad. But anyway, this is where we're at. Enthusiasm can be infectious, yeah, but that's an infection, not an infection. Anyway, but this is where we're at right now. It's the same problems. I don't know, maybe we could just drop certain players and play academy players, but I feel, once again, we're desperate. At that point, we're desperate, and I don't know if it's a good idea, but I feel we're going to have to suffer. We're going to have to suffer until the players come back. And I don't know how long it's going to take. I can't sit here and paint a pretty picture. I just can't. I feel like this season is going to be a desperate scrap to the top 4. And I've not even answered the question in the title of the video, City going out. I mean, there's a real good chance that we might do, unfortunately. City are currently down in 22nd. God, it's like back in the Championship again where there's 24 teams. We need to win one game, might just about do it. We won't beat PSG as it currently stands. Club Brugge at home, maybe. But the way we defend right now, Casillas getting just a point there. I don't know how we're going to handle this. I think Pep has an ego. Of course he does, Marcus, you're right. But I'd be amazed if he doesn't, if he's not forced to address the squad. Look, you can sign players about him, man. Do you like this player? Yes, well, I'm signing him anyway. Guys, thanks for watching this video. I know it's not all happiness and sunshine, but that's the reality right now. We're going to have to suck it up as a fan base and accept that until certain players come back. I think we're going to do the best we can, but I think we're fucked.